fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousens.
The first 2 minutes we're going to do a brief review of the story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we're going to let you know before we do shift into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we dive in, Amy, tell us a little bit about this story.
A divorced woman who writes a column for a print magazine is forced to make creative changes to her column. This change pairs her up to write alongside her good-looking younger coworker. She has to go on 10 dates with different men her kids select for her. This delightful rom-com was witty, charming, and heartwarming. Sarah, what did you think about this story?
You said some of the things that I was going to say. It's delightful, it's witty, it's charming. I listened to this on audio. I highly recommend. The narrator does a fantastic job. This story was so funny. It's a topic that we haven't really discussed before. We've never really covered. Mm-hmm. Somebody who is kind of walking through the aftermath of a divorce, and then you get the fun little play on that she has to go on all these dates that her children get to choose. I can't even imagine. That would be terrifying to me. I laughed so much. It was so heartwarming, and it made me so happy. I loved it. What'd you think?
This was such a cozy, delightful breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. It really reminded me a lot of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, the famous movie that everybody loves. It's so charming. I loved it.
Yeah, it has all those good feels when you're reading it. You're just happy.
All right, let's get into our ratings. Angst.
This was just like a 0.5.
I did 0.
Yeah, it's not...
It's cute. Not much angst.
There is something that takes place that I was like, ugh, how's that going to work? And that was my angst. It's not an angsty story. It's delightful.
All right, humor.
It was like, I wanted to say 2 to 2.5. I kind of teetered. I didn't know which way to go.
I did 1.5. I was a little lower than you, but I there was a lot of really witty inner dialogue. Uh-huh. This female main character is just a delight. I really liked her.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my 2. That's what I have, but I did kind of...
Teeter a bit?
Yeah, teeter of which to choose.
All right, spiciness.
Spice. 0.25.
I did 0.5.
Okay,
and
see, I had 0.5 and I was like, I wasn't sure. There's tension.
There's tension. There's some suggestive dialogue.
Yeah.
A bit.
Let's say 0.5.
Really. Okay.
That's what I actually have here, and I was thinking about. I literally changed it on the spot. Fun fact. But let's do 0.5.
Okay. All right. Tears.
1.
Okay, I did 0.
Well, I didn't cry.
I knew you were gonna do higher than me because you.
I didn't cry, but it starts off with her getting divorced, and it made me sad, and that's hard. And learning how to co-parent, and I don't have experience with that, but I can, sympathize for somebody who's walking through that, and
I think I like that perspective and point of view, and I think probably the reason why I didn't focus as much on that is because that was the prologue, and then it jumps to a year later, so some time had passed on that.
I think it hits me because there's still some little moments throughout because you have to co-parent, and so it just made me sad, but I did not cry. This is not a sad story at all.
All right, overall
5.
I did 4.25. I love the story.
I loved it.
Feel good, cozy, a great palate cleanser. It was a delight.
It was one of my favorites. I loved it.
That concludes a spoiler-free quick review of the story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion, which is going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, go check it out and then come back and listen to our deeper discussion. And then we would absolutely love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. In the quick review, we talked about how the story opens with Anna's divorce from Dan, and then it shifts over to a year later. Let's begin our discussion talking about that and Anna's life after divorce.
Yes, it's 1 year later, and we are kind of seeing what Anna's life is like, what her new normal is, life with her kids, and her job. And it's funny because she's just getting used to how things are. She goes into work, and they set her down and say, things are changing.
Isn't that just like life?
Investors coming in. Things are going different, in a different direction. I feel really bad for her, Amy, because she's just kind of gotten used to where she's at, adapting to being a single mom, and they don't like what she's writing for this print.
It's a little stale and...
Yeah.
Not for the young, hip demographic that they're looking to.
I felt for her. I mean, not that I'm in that position, but just I can only imagine, that to be, because I'm 38, so I was the same age as her, and I thought, oh gosh, you've gone through this major life change, and now at work they're unhappy. I can imagine that being very nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. And so when she's grappling to, hey, I can do that. I can go on dates. I thought, man, you can feel that desperation of trying to cling to her livelihood. But the whole intro was just very, you hurt for her for what she's gone through, but you're also happy for her, and that you have that wit and that humor immediately. It was a comical.
We also get our first glimpse at Will in this scenario when they're talking about the column. She's kind of discovered that he's gone around her and is trying to gun for her column a little bit here and step on her, which I find interesting, especially knowing how he feels about her, which we learn later in the story, how he feels in this moment about her, and he's still kind of going around her and gunning for her job.
I think that the first impression of Will is, well, we have to say he's younger, and he is kind of flirtatious throughout the office, and she has this impression of him that he basically dates a different girl every week, every month.
Kind of a playboy vibe.
She gets a playboy vibe, which I feel like is not really justifiable 100% because she doesn't know him on a personal level. Yeah, he is. He's trying to branch out of the food critic and into something else, which, we later get explanation as to why. I don't know. The second he entered the office, I wasn't even mad at him. It's just like the description, I was like, this is going to be fun.
I know.
I was ready to read because I don't know. His character isn't off-putting to me.
No, me neither. And an age gap forbidden romance is my favorite trope. And even though it's not technically forbidden, it is a worklife romance. So in a sense, it could be forbidden. So I was here for it the moment he opened his mouth and they gave the description about him. I was, sign me up, please.
I know.
They make the suggestion for her to make a couple of changes to the column. They aren't happy with that. And in the end, they bring Will he kind of weasels his way into being paired up with her to do this column where her kids are going to make the recommendations of the dates, and the men that she dates, they want to pick the dates because they don't want her to do something boring and lame and just,
because she attempted the online. It didn't work out for her. So it's dating in real life.
Yes, she has to date people that she knows in real life. And so this is where they pair her up with Will to kind of correlate along with her, and he has to go on dates as well.
The man about town or whatever it was. It was so comical to me. I loved it.
One of the things that I really like about Will and Anna's dynamic together is he always reads her columns and always has reviews and kind of is a little bit nitpicky about things. Of course, he admires her writing, but he always has recommendations on things that she needs to make better.
He's pointing out the typos. She's like, it's unedited.
Which I find interesting because she's not that. She keeps saying, it's a first draft, Will. Calm down. So I like the different dynamic that they have. He's very meticulous, and she's a little more lackadaisical in her writing style. Let's dive into, we're going to kind of skip around with the different dates as we're walking through the story. But let's start off with her first date with Neil and this fishing date that the kids have kind of wormed. Oh man, I didn't mean to say that pun, but wormed her way into this date with him. And it is really funny to be an observer. Let's talk about this first date.
Well, first I was concerned for her because her son picked him because it is the dad of a friend from school, and he's just getting divorced, which I thought, oh, too soon. But they go out, they go fishing. Amy, this is just exactly what I would expect from somebody who is recently divorced, and I'm talking new recent divorce. But he tries to teach her how to fish, and she's thinking she's going to be a hot shot and take a picture while she's casting the line. When I heard, when I was listening, so I heard when she does the bit where he is kind of moaning in the background because she has hooked his face. Friend, have you ever been fishing?
Well, yes, but I'm not a fan of it. Not many times. I've never been hooked.
Have you hooked anybody?
No.
The very first time I went fishing.
You did?
I did this, but not in their face, thank goodness. It was my cousin, and he was trying to teach me. He's like older than me, 5 years older than me. And I hear him like, hey, and his hat goes flying into the pond because I hooked his hat off of his head. So, close enough to his face, right? Like, I could relate to this woman. Oh my goodness. But I mean, I felt like, oh, this is horrible. He handled it really well. Until they were like driving home, was it?
Yeah.
And he's
she talks about, well, yeah, because she talked about cycling. She's trying to find some common ground because she's feeling really bad about hooking his face. And she knew that the kids had told her that he doesn't like cyclists. And so she just, casually trying to find some common ground and did not realize what a landmine she was throwing out in front of them by doing that.
I love the part where she thinks to herself, is this what I sound like when I talk about cycling? Because she hates cycling too. Yeah, it was just so funny. I do have to say, I felt bad for the guy because he got an infection
2 times.
And then he gets a second infection and she's looking at his face and it's just all, ugh, gross.
My initial thought when the kids were hooking her up with somebody from school was exactly what happened. What's going to happen when this date doesn't go well? Or you have to see this person again, and he asked her for a second date and she had to tell him no.
The mortification of when she had to, kind of ask him because he said, I told Sheila that we're dating. What? Why would you do that? And he's like, it's okay. You can tell people you broke up with me. I just wanted her to know that I'd moved on. Oh, no. No.
Oh, that was a great first date.
It was so funny.
My personal favorite is her second date.
Yes.
With the waiter. The waiter named Caleb. He tells her, well, she realizes there's an age discrepancy between them, and they're talking. She lies and says she's 33. He lies and says he's 27.
Yeah.
He's really 22.
Oh, God.
And he takes her. Okay, the first clue was when he texts and asked her to go to a house party at 10, and when she shows up, he tells her people won't even show up until midnight.
Yeah.
I felt her inner struggle this whole date because I am that way. If someone had texted me at 8 p.m. to go out on a date at 10 p.m., I would have happily declined.
As a 38-year-old woman, I can honestly say everything Anna was feeling that night, I was like, yes, sister, I relate.
I really was standing in solidarity with her.
I was too, but let's talk about what happened.
Let's do it.
On this date.
So
house
much
party.
yummy goodness.
Amy, the second that they offer her the brownie, were you not like, abort?
Yes.
When she says it's kind of soily.
Yes.
I was like, you just ate pot.
How do you not know?
She's just having the time of her life when she starts describing that her heart is racing. And then she's like, let's get a tattoo.
When she asks him about what his ampersand means. And then he talks about how there's one of his friends that does it for a real good rate.
Oh my goodness.
I knew she was leaving that party with a tattoo.
I did too. I was cracking up laughing. And it was just so comical when because she's just having a really good time. And she passes out on that bed because she can't go home. She's too tired.
High.
And high. But it wasn't her fault. I felt so bad for her. I'm like, man, I'm so naive. That would be such my luck. But I would be wondering what is in the brownies. But when she wakes up and she feels bodies on her and she thinks it's her children, but realizes I never related to anything more this entire night than when she went to that bathroom. And she describes the bathroom.
Who would live like this? College people.
And she knows it's time to go. It's time to leave. I will use my own.
I loved how
bathroom.
understanding Caleb was when he saw her and they discussed their actual ages.
That was so funny.
They just agreed to let it be at one. I think that this was just a one-time thing, and he agreed. Oh, it was a delight. That was my favorite date.
I love that he flattered her too to say that she could pass for 33.
Oh yeah.
The lies that 22-year-old men tell us older women.
Let's shift gears over to Anna's ex, Dan, because there's a lot that's transpiring on the side in the midst of all of these dates. Dan now has a live-in girlfriend, Sylvie, and she is young and vivacious and all the things that Anna doesn't think she is. And the kids like her as well as they can. Let's talk about Dan and Sylvie.
That he's dating a younger woman?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay, this is where for me it was sad, because even though Anna is not harboring any,
residual feelings.
Yeah, there's nothing that's lingering there. She's not missing Dan. Her marriage was truly over. She does sometimes, I think, struggle a little bit, like battle with the way that it all fell apart, and some of the things that had happened, but I think that it would be natural to not be necessarily envious that Dan has moved on, but that you're looking at, somebody that you've spent a great amount of time with and that you've created 2 children with, and to see what they chose after you, and to see that he had shifted his lifestyle so much. He's no longer oblong. He is a triangle. That he, takes his physical health into account and his mental health into account, and he chose to do it with somebody else. And so for that, I think it was kind of hard to read the scenes with Sylvie. I didn't like when she goes in, she invites her over because she wants to meet her. Sylvie invites Anna over because she wants to meet her. They're having a dinner, which I just thought that would be super awkward. But if you were living with my kids, I would want to meet you too.
Which I want to sidetrack since you mentioned it. I think it stung a little bit having to hear about Sylvie moving in with Dan from her kids instead of from Dan. That was a bit jarring.
Yeah, and I wouldn't appreciate that because you share children. At that point, it's not, you can't just have any kind of relationship. You have to communicate with the parent of your children.
So Sylvie invites him over for dinner.
She wants him over, and the part that I didn't like, and I love that they address it later, is Sylvie said, refers to both of them as being the mom. And as a mom, I would be not okay with that because I am perfectly capable of being a mom. You can be a bonus parent, but you're not their mom. So I was kind of happy with the way Sophie chose to write that, because later on when Anna and Dan do address that.
Which let's talk about that scene, because it really is, it shows a lot of growth in their relationship, and I kind of find it a pivotal moment in how they're parenting moving forward, because they really have take this opportunity to lay some things out on the table about their communication style and the way they're co-parenting, and a little beefs basically that they have with one another, but in a healthy way. I felt like, let's talk about that, chat.
Well, this is jumping forward. So that was the dinner.
Yes.
So if we move forward, because those were kind of my feelings of Sylvie.
Yeah.
Dan and Sylvie are expecting a baby, and he is letting Anna know, and they are just having an open, honest conversation, and it comes up about Sylvie calling herself a mom to the kids. And I love that Dan says, I know, I was very aware that she did that, and you are a great mom, and you are their mom.
Yes.
And I will address that with her. And I appreciated that because, and I'm sure some people feel differently about that kind of thing. And I think that that's a discussion that you have to have of what you're okay with and what you're not. But the reality is a lot of people are not okay with that.
Yeah.
I would not be okay with that. I'm like, I'm their mom. I don't know. Sylvie was just kind of, I didn't hate her. I didn't love her.
Yeah, I didn't love her. She seemed a little immature at times and a little persnickety about things that are trivial and shouldn't matter. And I get it, if you're not used to having kids in your life, their kids are going to make messes and they're going to do different things. And I realize that people are going to parent differently. But I liked the example of growth between Anna and Dan's communication style from the start of the story to the end when they had that conversation about Sylvie being pregnant. It was a great example of her communicating what she needed and then him following through with what she needed by communicating in advance. Hey, because she did say if she ever becomes pregnant, I'd like to hear it from you first. And he honored that, and then that opened the opportunity to talk more.
I think that was a beautiful depiction of how co-parenting can be and should be for couples too, because the reality is a lot of couples do get divorced and then they have to walk this road. And so I appreciated kind of seeing that insight into what that life might be like for somebody and how it can be done.
Yeah.
I thought that the author handled it really well.
I agree. One of the things that Anna and Dan shared in their marriage was a love for a TV show that starred Ryan Sterling. And Ryan Sterling happens to be the guy in her next date that we're going to talk about. I wasn't really sure how this date was going to go, because here you have a hero or somebody that you look up to. So already they're sitting higher on this pedestal. And then, of course, Will and some other people had told her that there's rumors that he's kind of a creep and be careful. So we're starting to see this side to Will, a little bit of a soft-heartedness to him peeking through. Let's talk about this really gross date with Ryan Sterling.
Well, it starts off a little rough for her because she's getting ready to leave to go watch him in a play in Bath, which is where they're from. Her son has nits, which is what they call them over there. Over here we call it lice. Friend, that stressed me out.
I thought of you. I knew you were stressing reading that.
I hate reading anything
I thought,
with lice.
Sarah's probably skimming through this scene right now.
I felt like her, where she feels itchy even though she doesn't have nits herself. But anyway, so her night starts like that. The sister has nits. The babysitter, she's like, I will pay you double.
I would have been the babysitter. I'm out.
100%. If you even said that to me, you know me. I know. My kid gets nits, I would be like, well.
I'm not the type of person, I don't mind being, if someone has been sick or whatever, I don't stress out about that. But I'm not going to actively go and sit next to someone that I know is either running fever, vomiting, or has lice. I'm just not.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not, I don't know. Anyway, so the scene starts stressful. That's the point, everybody. Everybody that has read this, the scene starts stressful. She continues on with her date. She gets a bright idea. She stops by the pharmacy.
Yes, let's talk about Loretta while we're here.
Well, we have to get to the play first. She starts by the pharmacy. She gets the stuff. She picks up a silk scarf. Which I was trying to think, what does this look like? Is it fashionable? I don't know. She gets to this place. She sits down by a woman. She has on a silk scarf. And the lady assumes she has cancer.
Immediately, Anna realizes that the
mistake.
Because she realized that this woman has definitely had cancer, is in remission, or in that journey of life.
Loretta could not be a more remarkable human being. She's so lovely. I loved that whole scene. I felt so horrible for Anna because I would feel that way. I would feel...
Would you have corrected her?
I
don't think you would have.
I don't even know that I would have worn the scarf.
Well, that's true.
I probably would have sat very still, probably been nervously sweating. I don't know. I not have gone. We got to move on quickly from this. My head is starting to feel itchy. Anyway,
we like Loretta.
We like Loretta. There was mistakes, but it's later that they find out and they correct that. They become good friends.
Yes, she got a hoot out of it.
Anyway. After this, they get in the car. They go to this club.
Yeah.
With Ryan. I'm going to let you share what the date with Ryan is like.
He's so creepy. I kind of envision this really dark underground private room in a club where it's just all black walls. The lights are all dim. There's gross couches that you are wondering what kind of questionable things are on them and have been done on them.
But probably nicer because he's got some money.
Yes, nicer.
But still, you question.
Just with the creepy vibe, that's where my mind went.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking nicer at all. I wasn't even thinking about his money.
I pictured a nice club, but
I'm sure it was.
One of those that you're like...
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But just to kind of, match his energy.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was gross.
So they're in this dark room by themselves, and she's getting really uncomfortable, and he's trying to make a move on her, and she's starting to panic a little bit. And my favorite thing, I mean, because he's really being a creep, and she's remembering, oh yeah, I'm getting my spidey senses up, people have warned me about him, I should not have met my hero or this guy. And she yells out, I have knits!
It was... He immediately, because he's twirling her hair, drops her, and he's like, what? It's like, I have knits.
Ew.
I love that he seemed to be like, ugh, why would you come out? How could you do this to me? And she just doesn't care.
Yes.
Anything to get out of this room. I laughed so hard. And then I made my husband check my own head to make sure.
You did not.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was a horrible day. But man, what a way to get rid of a creep. Am I right?
It's true.
Yeah. Don't meet your heroes, kids.
The next date that she goes on is a guy named Michael, and he is a Jane Austen enthusiast.
He's the postman, too.
Yes, he is, which another potentially awkward scenario if it didn't work out. Luckily for this one, it didn't end awkwardly, but can you imagine if it had? He still has to bring you your packages and your mail every day.
Oh, that just,
I do like...
But you have to think about the kids and their ability to meet men.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
yeah.
I do like, we don't have to spend a lot of time on Michael, but I do like that they talked about Sense and Sensibility and her reading that story. So, and then of course the Jane Austen theme will come into play later when we get to the big grand ball. But...
We do have to make mention, though, that he's such an enthusiast that they dress in time period costumes.
Oh, yes. And that's when they run
into Will and Loretta, because Loretta knows Will, and they correct the whole, I don't have cancer, let's be friends.
Which is when Loretta found it just delightful.
I loved Will's expression on his face. He is fighting so hard not to laugh at what she's wearing. It was the best.
I loved it.
And that's pretty much where Michael ends. But she maintains a friendship with him.
Yes, and then set up a dating profile. Let's talk briefly about Noah, her next door neighbor. I kind of suspected he was going to be one of her dates just because of their interaction and the back and forth between them on the hedge being an issue between them. The fact that he's picking up packages for her and telling her about her dumpster. I knew that he was going to be one of these date options from the kids.
So Noah is a widower.
Yes.
And that we don't have to go into all the details of the hedge fight, but they are enemies. And she is appalled that her children would want her to date him. But they do. They go out. They go to, I believe it's a museum.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he likes to read everything and take his time. And he's a very nice man. And he opens up about the loss of his wife. And he also opens up that he will never, ever, ever fall in love ever again because he was so in love with her. And I like that she went on this date with this man because I feel like she understands him better and he understands her, and they kind of create a friendship. There will never be anything romantic between them.
Mm-hmm.
It was
a truce, and
a sweet date.
It gave her an understanding of why he was so particular about the hedge too, because of his wife.
And, yeah.
I want to divert away from the dates for a little bit, and let's talk about her and Will. Okay. We've already talked about her impression of Will. We've talked about their different writing perspectives. Mm-hmm. We've sprinkled in a few things about how Will's starting to show his tenderheartedness, and he's starting to do these kind gestures. Her cat passes away, and she does call him to come over, which I just found endearing. Yeah. He buys her this really nice clay set, brings her coffee, of course, the flowers when she's going out on the date with Noah. Let's talk about Will and just his gooey center.
I felt like it was very obvious from the beginning that Will has a thing for Anna. So that, to me, as the reader, was no secret. So when he does these little things and he's encouraging to her, when he's helpful to her, it just, you're just kind of like, Anna, can you not see this man is in love with you and has been probably for the entire time he's been working there. Even
Noah told her that when he saw the flowers, that man is in love with you. And she even balked at that.
Yeah. Which at that point, they had a relationship that was secret, which we will dive into here in a minute. We'll go backtrack a little bit because these dates have been sprinkled throughout the development of Anna and Will's relationship. But I loved all the little things that he did. He was just a top
Yeah, I like
boyfriend
just
for
the
me.
soft-heartedness of him.
Yeah.
They get an opportunity with the Times to go on a couples retreat.
Yes.
Which you know where this is going to be headed.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go on this retreat, honestly. It
I
sounded
do too.
like such a win, and what a beautiful place to go. And just turn off technology and just be with one another, an opportunity for couples to fall in love or just kind of further that level of love that you have with the person that you're there with. They're going strictly for business. Strictly.
Yeah.
They each get their own cabin.
Mm-hmm.
I 100%, when she forgot her code, I knew he would know it and then not tell her.
But he did not remember.
You think?
I don't think he remembered that night. I do think that it's one of those things like, oh, I do remember.
Huh. I suspected he knew all along.
I suspected he knew. I just assumed that he legit kind of, it was like one of those things like, what is it? And then remember.
It gets him into the one bed trope, which of course, we all love a good one bed trope. Let's talk about this retreat.
I loved this retreat. I love the idea that they had to go and put their cell phones away. They make a deal over this chair, which I love. One of the things, this is kind of the thing that I love the most about Will, is that he really encourages her to be more confident and to be more outspoken, to not shy away from, okay, I deserve this, and it not be in a demanding way, but in a demanding way.
Kind of like the example of
assertive.
I'll order it the way it comes. Give it to me however it comes, and he makes sure that she...
Exactly.
How do you really... Like, if you had the option.
Right, and I loved that part, too. So they had made a bet about this chair and something else, and all of it is who's going to pick up their phone first, kind of thing. I love that they really get to know each other, and they learn a lot about each other in these couple of days that they're there. That feels like, a month, because when you have to disconnect from all technology and everything. I really liked that she had an insight into his family and into who he was, and that she completely misunderstood him. Also, I have to say, one of my favorite moments, and I believe that it was on this retreat, when she says, Will, are these fashion glasses? Because he wears these glasses that are not prescription, and he used to wear glasses, but I guess he had eye surgery or something, and so he still wears them, but he gives her a reason. And it was just, that to me was comical. I don't know. I loved their dynamic together.
I did too. I love the growth that they had with one another, getting to know each other on an intimate level, like conversationally, and then of course physically too. But just, you said it feels like you've been there a month at a time. I really feel like when you're in that forced proximity away from the distractions of life, 3 days can feel like a month, and the closeness that you can draw with one another, I really feel like that's believable to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
She's been seeing him with this woman and seeing calls with this woman, Dee Dee. Let's talk about Dee Dee and her assumptions about Dee Dee and Will.
Right. So she had seen Dee Dee when they were at a work conference thing, and they had ridden down together. They were supposed to ride back together. Will bells but leaves her car. She sees him get in the vehicle with Dee Dee. And then there's another time where she sees him at a cafe, and she calls him, and he lies to her about the dentist, and he is with Dee Dee. She makes the assumption that he is telling her these things, and she also feels like he kind of pulls back a little bit from the way that they have gotten to know each other, and so she assumes that he's really seeing her and he's playing around with Anna, and so she feels kind of hurt and tries to pull back on that relationship. But that's not who Dee Dee is.
No, she's a headhunter,
but she's also the wife of one of his friends. And he is pursuing a job in Paris, and he's really trying to beef up his portfolio. That's one of the reasons why he wants to write the dating column, because he wants to show that he can be more than just the food guy. And so she kind of makes assumptions that are not true. But I do feel like they resolved that very quickly.
Yes.
And I was thankful for that.
Same. I like it when they resolve it in such a mature way and they don't drag it out. You mentioned the work trip that they took. That's kind of what sparked their physical connection that they had, and the kind of the arrangement that they had with each other, that it was going to be only sex and it was going to be physical. And of course we know how that always goes. There's never any emotions.
Right. It kind of is it jump starts it, but they did not they were not intimate on that trip.
Correct.
Other than flashing each other across the from
flirtatious.
building to building, hotel to
Yeah.
hotel at the window, which that was a comical scene. And
Yes.
I thought, oh, that's very bold of you, because when she was thinking about the people down on the street, I was like, girl, yeah. And you like sitting there doing a little strip tease behind a curtain.
So they had this arrangement, which they agreed that it was just going to be a physical thing. They weren't going to have feelings, which kind of lays the groundwork for some misunderstanding and just not really communicating accurately to one another about how they genuinely feel. We'll put a pause button on that part. I want us to shift briefly over to the choir night and when she gets the opportunity to meet Will's family and Simon, his brother.
Yes. So one of the things Will confided in her was that the reasons as to why he stayed in Bath, because his other brothers had moved away, but they have a brother who has an injury. He's very close to him. And so they always promised after their mother had died that somebody would always be there to help their dad with their brother. His brother does this choir and they're trying to raise funds for it. And he has lost out on his video photographer, I believe it is. And she has a history in that, being able to do that. So he asked her if she will operate the camera that night. I love that she feels so comfortable to meet his family, and his family feels so comfortable with her. And it meant so much to Will because it's such an important thing. I love that she finds out that's why he's always humming Build Me Up Buttercup.
Yes. Because
it's his brother's choir that is always singing that. And that she stayed for that, it meant so much to him. It was one of those things where you realize you've had this intimate relationship with this person, but then you're also seeing this side of them, who they are with their family. And I really love that he was open and vulnerable to her in that aspect and allowing her to see that. And that was kind of one of my things that I thought, how do you not realize how much you mean to him?
Yeah.
But
I agree. I love that perspective. Let's continue on with the dates that she goes on. The next one is the micro dating, which I found it very funny that she walked in and the demographic of that was quite a bit older than her. But she's there with Loretta. They're going out on this the speed dating session. And as she's going around, or rather the guys are going around to her station, Will sits in her seat. So he showed up. And not only is he there, he's had some drinks.
He is not a part of the age demographic.
No, he is not.
He's too young to be there. Yeah, at this night, he kind of takes over, and he's not loving seeing her with other guys. And he tells her what she means to him and is very honest that you can't deny that what we've been doing, this is real. This is not, we're not just messing around. We have feelings. I know you have feelings for me. I have feelings for you. This is one of the parts where it was sad and it made me want to cry because she has to lie to him.
So he'll take the job in Paris.
Because
he talks here about how,
he got the job in Paris and he tells her he doesn't have to go and she won't allow him to compromise his ambitions and his goals for her, which... Oh, that
was this part of the angst for you too? Were you trying to figure out how is it going to work for him to be in Paris and her to be here? It was me
I
too.
felt like all of their reasons were valid. Yeah. Because her fear of if he doesn't take it, he will resent me. I absolutely thought that is exactly how I would feel. That is exactly what would be going through my mind because that's what I thought. When everything is good and new and exciting, it's a great idea. But then, when things are hard and your relationship goes through the lows and you would be questioning, you know, and I would never want to wonder if my partner resented me. So I understand why she felt that way. It broke my heart that she lied to him because it broke his heart. Yeah. And you could see that he's apologizing for, excuse me, I'm sorry, I misunderstood and that's on me. That was really, let's move on. I didn't like that scene.
Tugs at the heartstrings. When she gets back to the magazine, he hasn't officially accepted the job in Paris, so at least he hasn't communicated that. They get word that the magazine is closing, and they meaning Anna and Will, are being offered a job to be on retainer, freelance work. Well, this is where Will communicates to them that he's going to decline that. He's taking the job in Paris. And she, of course, accepts that. She's a little bit concerned about how they're going to keep the magazine going. I was going to like a digital version, basically, not the full print version of that, so scaled back. But she still gets to keep the freelance. I loved in this moment, even though he had been hurt by her and her lies, she stands up because of him and asks for a raise, and he is coaching her on asking for a 20% raise.
When he holds up the 2 and she's like 2%, he's like, tries to gesture to her. She's like 20,
25. Yeah. I loved that even though he had been hurt, he was still keeping an eye out for her and trying to take care of her. Let's talk briefly. We haven't really spent a lot of time talking about the kids, Jess and Ethan. Let's talk about Jess and the little side story that we had with her being bullied at school.
Yeah, so in the midst of all of this, there's a lot with her kids because obviously they're picking her dates and stuff. And we kind of see there's moments throughout the entire story where her daughter Jess isn't openly communicating. You can tell that she's withholding something from her mom. She just didn't want to concern her. So after Will has moved to Paris, the magazine has gone to where it's just digital. She's more, I think, a little bit more present. Not that she wasn't, but you get what we're saying. And so her daughter, it comes to light that her daughter is being severely bullied by this girl, so much so that she has to go to the school. The girl is removed from school, and it's this whole ordeal, but it ends up being such a great thing because it helps her daughter to get through that. She's able to kind of be more herself because she was kind of being bullied like she was kiddish. She starts a club at school, and I feel like Anna just realizes there were some areas that she was missing. Yeah. Because she was focused on other areas, on her job, on Will, on things. And so it was just a really sweet moment between the daughter and the mom, I felt like. And it was an important part of the story because, it's a big deal.
Will has accepted the job in Paris, as we've mentioned. And one of the things that I found interesting was that he submitted his final column to correlate with her final one. And he didn't read it. He submitted his to her to submit and hasn't read it and all that. Anna's response to that was taking the article as an opportunity to confess her feelings to Will. Let's talk about this final act of the grand gesture.
Yes. So she has a final date. We won't cover that because there's not much to it, but it is because of that final day that she realizes how she truly feels for Will, that she is in love with Will. And so she writes up this beautiful article that's going to compliment his, telling him how she feels, ends it with, Will, call me. And she is, as we've mentioned with Michael, the Jane Austen enthusiast, she has become friends with him, and she is going to this ball. That was one of the things that she had to do, was go to this Jane Austen ball that they hold, and Will was going to go to the Eiffel Tower, and he had done that date. So she is there with Noah, Michael, and his date, who is also a Jane Austen enthusiast, and they are dancing and having a good time, and Noah's kind of there begrudgingly, but as a favor, she gets there's a tap on Noah's shoulder as they are dancing, and it is Will.
And there he is.
And he has shown up.
One of my favorite things about this scene is that he's going to get kicked out because he's not in the appropriate attire, and Noah agrees to trade clothes with him.
I know. I love it. He's like, come on. Yeah, and so he changes, and they stay at this dance, and everything works out. And one of the things that I love about this is that a lot of times we get these stories where somebody will move back and I'm just so in love with you and whatever. This was more realistic. They're making it work. They're making it work long distance, and it goes on for several months, and he has this incredible relationship with her children, and he's still in Paris and she's still in Bath, but it works for them.
That was one of my favorite things about the story, was that the author chose to keep it realistic. Most of the time when you read stories with these major conflicts where you don't know how they're going to be able to get together, you can speculate, and usually in the end one of them ends up foregoing whatever circumstance that they're in so that they can move together or be together. I really, really appreciated the fact that this author did not choose to write it that way, and she chose to write it in a realistic way, and they did keep the long distance.
I agree. They both got their dream and they got each other, and it was a beautiful ending to an incredible story. That concludes our discussion of, is she really going out with him? We hope you enjoyed this episode and want to continue the discussion with us. You can hit us up on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast or on Facebook at our Postbook Depression discussion group. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.